Westfield, New Jersey, was the kind of town that people moved to when they were ready to settle down. With its manicured lawns, colonial homes, and a main street that looked borrowed from a postcard, it offered an illusion of stillness, like time had paused there on purpose. Derek and Maria Broders believed they had found not just a house, but a future. The property at 657 Boulevard stood proud and timeless beneath a canopy of old trees. It was the kind of home that seemed to hold memories even before anyone had made them. 6 bedrooms, a sweeping staircase, classic moldings. It was a place meant for tradition, for milestones. They imagined their children growing up within its walls, birthdays marked on kitchen door frames, holidays celebrated under warm lights. It wasn't just the house that drew them in. It was everything around it. The gentle hum of sprinklers in the morning, the quiet laughter of children riding bikes at dusk, the kind of neighborhood where nothing bad ever seemed to happen. They had worked hard for this. Years of saving, planning, and sacrifice had led to this exact moment. And with the ink still drying on the closing papers, they were already laying out ideas for renovations. New floors, a fresh coat of paint. Room by room, they would make it theirs. But the house, it seemed, had other plans. Before they even moved in, something arrived. Not furniture, not a neighbor's welcome, but a letter. Unassuming at first, an envelope with no return address, no postmark to indicate its origin. It sat quietly in the mailbox, waiting. Inside was a message, short, strange, and far too personal. Whoever had written it claimed to be watching the house, not just recently, for years, for decades. It wasn't a threat, not exactly, but it wasn't benign either. It felt possessive, as if the house didn't truly belong to the family who had just bought it, but to someone else, someone who believed they had been wronged. For the Broaduses, the dream they had just begun to step into suddenly felt unstable. The house that once radiated promise now gave off something colder, something harder to define. There were no broken locks, no trespassers, no obvious danger, just a single letter, and a presence that made it clear. 657 Boulevard was not alone. The Broaduses turned to the police, hoping for reassurance. The letter was handed over, examined, filed. There was no immediate cause for alarm, they were told. No threat had been made, but that didn't make the words any less disturbing. Over the following days, they kept to their routine. Contractors came and went, tearing up floors and rewiring fixtures. But even amid the clamor of drills and hammers, something felt off. The house didn't feel empty. It felt observed. The second letter came soon after. Another unmarked envelope. Another message typed on heavy paper. This time, the tone shifted. It referenced the children. It referenced movements inside the house. It referenced details that no outsider should have known. Whoever was writing these letters was watching, closely, intimately. It wasn't long before unease turned into dread. Maria stopped bringing the children by during renovations. Derek grew quiet, distracted. They began questioning everything, every car that slowed near the house, every neighbor who lingered a little too long at their mailbox. The police could offer no answers. Investigators canvassed the neighborhood, asked questions, and left empty-handed. It was as if the letters were coming from the shadows, written by a ghost that lived just beyond the edges of certainty. The Broaduses tried to reason with it. Perhaps it was a prank, a former tenant, someone with too much time and a typewriter. But even that idea came with its own fears, because if it wasn't a stranger, then it was someone close, someone who believed the house still belonged to them. The third letter was a turning point. It came with a darker tone, less veiled. It described not just the house, but the family itself. The writer had watched them from the shadows and now felt entitled to speak, as if they owned their story. The children were mentioned again, described in detail. Their routines, their toys, their voices. There were lines that seemed to question what secrets the house might hold, and whether those secrets had yet been discovered. The Broaduses stopped sleeping. Cameras were installed. A private investigator was hired. Even a former FBI agent was consulted to review the letters. Linguistic analysis was performed, suggesting the writer might be older, perhaps even female. A neighbor, a teacher, a recluse. None of it brought answers. The longer the mystery stretched, the heavier the atmosphere around 657 Boulevard became. The family hadn't even spent a single night in the house, but they already felt possessed by it. Not by ghosts, but by paranoia. By the knowledge that someone nearby, was playing a game they didn't understand. The fear wasn't about what had happened. It was about what might. Eventually, the Broaduses made a decision. They would not move in. The risk felt too great. They could not ask their children to sleep in a house watched by an invisible figure who refused to go away. But stepping away from the house did not end the story. Rumors spread quickly in Westfield. Some residents whispered that the Broaduses were staging the letters, trying to get out of a mortgage they regretted. Others were certain the threat was real, but believed it came from within the neighborhood itself. Someone with long-standing resentment or madness hidden behind white picket fences. The house sat in limbo, empty, silent, unwanted. Then, even after the decision not to move in, another letter arrived, this one colder, crueler. There were veiled threats, cryptic phrases, an ongoing narrative that refused to stop. The Broaduses tried to sell. They even offered the house at a loss. No buyers came forward. They were trapped by a home they never lived in, haunted by a presence no one could name. And still, the watcher watched. Years passed. The Broadus family found another place to live, but the house on Boulevard remained a weight in their lives. It lingered in headlines, podcasts, documentaries. The watcher had become something more than a person. It had become a symbol of the unknown. In 2019, the house was finally sold. A new family moved in. No new letters have been publicly reported since then, but that has not stopped the speculation. Some believe the watcher was a jilted neighbor. Others think it was someone who once dreamed of buying the home but lost it. A rare few wonder if the house itself had stirred something into motion. Despite countless hours of investigation, the writer was never identified. The letters were never traced. The motive was never understood. 657 Boulevard stands as it always did. Impressive, quiet, unblinking. The truth is still inside somewhere, waiting. If you think this story is over, think again. Darkness doesn't end, it waits, and the next one might be closer than you think. Subscribe before it finds you first.